Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the Internationalie podcast. This episode is titled Dealing with Representation. So let me talk a little bit about the podcast. So the Internationalie podcast is going to be a space where different international students, prospective ones, as well as current international students could get a glimpse of the life of international students in the U.S. or abroad. And so this week, I am joined by my colleague and dear friend, Makeda. Welcome to the show, Makeda.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Rosie.
You're welcome. Okay, so let me say a little bit about your background, and then we can delve into our conversation. Cool. So Makeda is from Addis Ababa. She attended Addis Ababa University Law School. She then went to Boston College School of Law, where she received her L.L.M. in human rights, and she is currently working within the Ethiopian judiciary. So, as the episode is titled Dealing with Representation, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word representation?
Well, when you see, I guess representation can be culturally, identity-wise, and, well, in our context, like representing your country.
Okay. So, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you faced where you were representing your culture, your Ethiopian culture, in the school that you went to? Any stories that you want to share where you felt like you had to represent your culture?
Well, okay, sure. So in my experience, not only was I the only Ethiopian L.L.M student, but I was also the only female plus Black and African. There was one African. He was from Uganda. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that was it. Mm-hmm. So we, not only did I have to represent my country at the same time, like when we were talking about the law and everything, mm-hmm. because everybody, of course, you have to share like what the perspective, like of the Ethiopian legal system as well, but you have to represent like the best. You have to be the best at everything. Mm-hmm. So as much as possible, because you don't want to get bad rep for your country.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, well, in my experience at Smith, when I first went there, so as a first year, we had the International Students Peer Orientation, which was the orientation specifically for international students before the orientation for the domestic U.S. students.
Yeah, we had one of those too.
Right? Mm-hmm. So that was like the introduction to the life of an international student that I got, because that's where I met most of my friends who were from like all over the world. And I was the only Ethiopian in my class. So it was class of 2019, and I was the only Ethiopian. But when I was a junior in college, so Smith started accepting more Ethiopians. So I think the maximum we were was 11. But then, like, my senior year, it went down when, like, people started graduating. I think the minimum we were was 4. But that's out of a total of, I think, 2,000 or 3,000 students of the college population. So I think, like, to help us put things in perspective, like, what was your student body size?
So the L.L.M class of, I don't remember, but maybe 20? Mm-hmm. Just the L.L.M. But we're part of the JD students, so that was, there's 1 L2, L3, L, so, like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I can't, maybe 300. I don't know the total class, but a lot. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was the only Ethiopian, mm-hmm. but I was the only African as well. I'm Black African as well, mm-hmm. from Africa, including the Ugandan mm-hmm. person. But I mean, yeah, I can't expect, of course, to have a lot of Ethiopians go abroad and study. That's not a fair thing to ask. Mm-hmm. But what I was surprised more is the diversity of the population, because they were, I think, overall, including the L.L.M class, we were about 5 or 6 Black people. Mm-hmm. So that was shocking for me. I will not even expect people from Africa to be there, but I mean, at least it would have been nice to see people that look like you, and part of the being the student body. And because for us, I think for me at least, it was a little bit not a culture shock to per se because I've traveled before, but it was definitely like I started being more conscious of my color for the first time. And as you know, we're from a country where of course everybody's black, so black was just a color. Then I had to sort of deal with the idea that it's going to be my identity as well there, that I will be identified by that. So just yeah.
So would you say that as an Ethiopian, living and studying abroad, that you faced some, like you felt like you were given a new identity as like black because that's how the U.S. sees you?
Oh, definitely, most definitely. But that was actually at first it was a bit of a struggle to accept that, to be identified as black.
Why was that a struggle for you?
Oh, because I'm not used to it.
Okay.
And because we come from a culture where black is just black. It's just a color. And then, and you know, when I actually, when I went there, it was at the time where Trump was elected.
Wow. So 2016?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was there, so that was, it kind of give like, so a black immigrant as well. So there was a lot of layer to my identity, which I had to be very conscious about at one point. So it was hard. It wasn't a hard, I don't know. It was a very interesting thing to cope with.
Yeah. And I think a lot of Ethiopians face that dilemma when they go abroad, especially in the U.S. context where the history and the slavery plays a role in creating those social structures where like people are grouped based on the color of their skin. But so I guess moving on to my next question, which will be, have you ever received any interesting questions about your identity, about your country, about your culture?
Interesting. I think, okay, the most interesting question is what do you eat?
What do you eat?
Yeah.
So, okay, can you explain?
I don't know why she asked me that. So, I had to really, I was confused. I don't know, maybe it might be something innocent. But yeah, she asked me, what do we eat? And I told her food. I mean, I asked her, like, because I kind of didn't want to be rude, so I asked her to clarify it a bit. So maybe it might be, how do I put it? Maybe she's asking you, what do we like, what's the culture of food? So
yeah, what's the food that most people eat in Ethiopia?
I gave her the benefit of the doubt, so it's fine.
Okay.
But I think what is the most interesting thing? People said, oh, so since you're from a poor country, like, how come you're here? I got that like once or twice. But it wasn't from by the way, I just want to clarify, it wasn't from the U.S. students, surprisingly. It was more from the international students that these questions were coming from. So that was a little bit, because we spend most of the time together, so it was kind of interesting. But it was hard. Not hard, it was very confusing.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes it's the way people ask questions, not the question itself, that tells you what their intentions are. Because if you say it as, you're just curious about someone else's culture, then it's genuine and you'll be happy to share that. But then exactly. So some people, I don't want to generalize, but like, just people in general, sometimes they ask you in a way that's condescending or that's like trying to get you like to say a specific thing that they could retaliate against you afterwards.
Oh yeah.
So then maybe like as international students, we navigate that, interesting area of identifying how a question is asked about our culture.
Yeah. But, we're not just international students, especially when we come from Africa. There is the blackness and the stereotype thinking of what Africa's supposed to look like. Yeah. For example, there's always consistently, even from my professors, they were very surprised when I was speaking English. So
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so they thought I was raised here, like
in the U.S.
Yeah, or like in the U.S. Or like, did you have an American teacher? And I was like, no. I read books and I just watched movies and I just maybe catch the accent, or my English was better, more like in comparison to the average Ethiopian. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the kind of like for you it's basic. It's not a big deal, but for them it's like, wow,
You speak English.
wow, yeah.
Yeah.
And she was looking at my TOEFL results and she's like, wow, you speaking? Yeah, apparently you do.
Mm. That's interesting that you brought that up because so I also went to high school in the U.S. So my junior and senior year of high school. So my junior year, I was taking different classes, and the most common question that my teachers, not even the students, but my teachers would ask me was, "How come you speak such good English?"
Oh yeah.
And so through time, because I got that question so much, I devised an answer. So my answer became, it's because I had great teachers.
That's a good one.
But it was a lie, though.
I
They
know.
didn't know.
But that was
a
a good one.
Right?
And you were kind of giving credit for the country too. That was a good one.
Yeah,
should
I
use
just
that
said
more
it's
often.
because of my teachers. But, in reality, I mean, I went to an all-girls school here in Ethiopia, and I think it was like our own self-motivation to read fiction, to watch movies, and to challenge ourselves that, that's how we were able to speak another language. And sometimes it was even better than some of our English teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So, going back to that point of, like, have you ever received an interesting question? Maybe I could share some stories as well. So, in college, my first year, I was a dishwasher. That was my first job. I was so excited about it because it was the first job where I got real money. So, before that, I was in high school. I didn't work. So, one time, me and my friend, we had our shift, and so we were working. And so our supervisor, she was white, just came, to supervise how we were, doing the job.
Are you washing
correctly.
it? Okay.
And then
we're not gonna be sarcastic. Yeah.
no, okay,
Dishwashing
this
is a big
serious.
deal. Yeah.
No, I really respect dishwashing. I love it so much. And so I was working with my other international friend who was from Kenya, and so this supervisor saw that we were international students.
Yeah.
I don't know how she knew we weren't from the U.S. because she could have easily assumed that we were from the U.S., that we were African Americans. But then I guess the accent kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
So she continues to ask my friend, I don't know who she asked, to be honest. So she just said, "So how did you come here?"
We swam.
Oh my God. It's so funny you say that because my friend from Kenya, she's very funny. She said, actually, on a boat. That's how we came. And the lady, what was so surprising was she believed her. And she was like, "Oh, interesting, on a boat, okay," and then left.
No follow-up questions.
No follow-up questions because she assumed that was true.
The immigrants.
Yeah, okay, on a boat. You come on a boat from Africa. Okay, that's how you do it. But coming back to the point of, like, getting interesting questions, like, we could talk about all the questions that we've received from people about our country, and it goes on and on and on. But then my follow-up question for that is, like, how do you find the balance of, because on one side you want to answer their question because they're curious and, like, they're interested in where you're coming from, so
Curious,
you want to provide an answer. But then at the same time, you're not the ambassador of your country. You're not the token, you know what I mean? Like, you're not supposed to know every single thing about your country. So how do you decide when to answer and which questions to answer?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think the first thing is I take everything at face value as much as possible, unless you're outright just insult me. But so I try my best to answer your questions. I really do try, even the stupid ones. Really, like, stupid ones that's in, like, for instance, one of my roommates. So it was winter.
Mm-hmm.
So as you know, like, after the summertime, which we get really, really tan. So during the wintertime, just, my skin will clear out, as will, I think, any black person, anyone with melanin.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very, and in her defense, I think I was the first black person even for her to meet. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe she saw one on TV. So she was very curious. So she just straight up, sorry.
No, I just wanted to like clarify what you're talking about. So winter in Boston is very cold.
Oh yeah,
There's no light.
no light. Yep.
It's probably the time that a lot of people suffer seasonal depression because you don't get the light, the sun that you need.
Yeah.
And that you're used to. And so during this time, dark-skinned people, especially Ethiopians, our color changes during the season because if it's winter and we don't get the sun, you start to lighten up.
Yeah.
And then if it's the summer, you start to darken, right?
Which is normal.
Okay, now continue your story.
Yeah. So actually, she didn't ask me. She just straight up touched me.
Touched you where?
On my cheek. And she just like touched it and just like checked it like on her hand.
Like
To check something
if it
came
was,
off. Yeah.
To check if it was makeup?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And she just did it. She was like, interesting. That was it. I was like, okay. That was basically the introduction, but I really did not explain it to her, like, yeah.
Like, you can't just come up to a person and then just touch them as a property.
True, but one thing that I had to get used to as well, that will happen. Especially when it comes to our hair. That will happen.
Oh my
The
god,
hair
let's talk
issue.
about hair. Can we please talk about hair?
Sure. Go for it, yeah.
Okay, so I don't even know where to start with hair. I feel like this is something like not only girls but also boys go through because as Ethiopians, I feel like our hair texture is kind of different than other Africans. But then it depends.
We don't know. It depends. We can't really generalize by saying that. Yeah.
But
there's so many different, like, in the African community. Yeah.
Exactly. But, 4C type hair, 3B, and they have their own, like, different types, right? Do you know it?
What?
So your hair texture, it has a type. So 4C is, like, the most hard to maintain, is what they say. And then there's 3B, which is, like...
What?
Okay, so we'll have a conversation after this.
Okay.
I'll tell you about all the different types of hair. But...
I did not know that.
Yeah, there are classifications of hair type.
And wait, okay, we can have... No,
yeah, I'll tell you about it afterwards. But, so for me, in my own personal experience, so my hair is naturally curly.
Which type?
I don't know the type, though.
Okay.
But it's just naturally curly. And so during the international students pre-orientation that I mentioned earlier, it was the first time I went to school where I met a lot of different people from different places. So I straightened my hair when I went. So I cut my hair and straightened it before I left. Okay, so it was really short and it was really straight. So it was like a French cut, I feel like it was.
Oh. but
But then I had it in a ponytail as well. So during orientation, people thought I was Indian.
Hey.
And then people would ask me, so which part of India are you from? And then I would get confused. I was like, no, I'm not from India. I'm from Ethiopia. And they're like, wait, what? Ethiopians have this kind of hair? And then they would just automatically go and touch it. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is fine.
Yeah.
They're just curious. It's fine. But then I was like, I'm deceiving people. Like, they're not recognizing my true identity because I straightened my hair.
Yeah.
So then I decided to not straighten my hair in college afterwards. And then I would, curl it all the time or like braid it all the time. And so then, they would be like, okay, maybe she's not from India. My point being, have you ever had an experience where someone just came to you and touched your hair?
Yeah. But like...
How many times would you say that happened to you? So how long did you live in the U.S.?
In the U.S. about, 2 years, I think?
2 years
and a half, yeah.
2 years and a half.
Yeah.
So in those 2 years and a half, how many times did someone come and touch your hair?
Okay, not a lot.
Okay.
Not surprisingly.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot, but at one point, you see, for me, this is how my experience is very different, maybe from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Some of the majority, like, curiosity came from the international students, which is very, I don't know. It wasn't from the U.S. students. It was, with them, it was very regular, maybe because we're L.L.M as well, we don't really interact together a lot. Mm-hmm. So, she just straight up. So, like, I took a shower. So, my hair is naturally curly as well. Mm-hmm. So, it was just flat. So, she just came and she was very surprised. Then, like, in the afternoon, it's like after it's dried up and everything, it's like a very miniature, not an afro necessarily, but just like, everywhere.
Afro,
Yeah,
but like a baby afro.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
And she just came over. She's like, what do you do to do this? Brush it. That's it.
Wash it.
Yeah.
It's natural.
Yeah, and at
Yeah.
one point I just gave up.
Mm-hmm.
So like when her friends came as well, they were very curious. So she just straight up and just touched it as well.
To show them, like, as a demonstration.
No.
Oh.
Her friend just came up and touched it as well.
Oh my
so
god.
I was like, I looked up and I'm like, okay, you know what? Y'all can touch it. That's it. It was a very odd experience. But I tried my best not to get offended as well. So I was.
But how do you not get offended? How is it possible?
I do get offended, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe they've never seen an African or a black person before.
Yeah. That's probably the case with most people, I feel like.
But I've never seen some people before, but I don't go touch them.
Okay, why is that?
I don't know. I really don't know. So that's why some of the things and the interactions between people it kind of confuses me. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of the reasons why as well I kind of wanted to go back. Mm-hmm. I don't understand some of it, and I think you have to live there or be born there and understand like the whole system, how it operates and how it treats, especially black people. Mm-hmm. And it's I just don't understand it. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do understand the history and the background and everything, but I just don't understand how people cannot see one person as a person, like, as an individual, as a human being.
Yeah. So they tokenize you.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do tokenize you.
That's interesting. So what are some of the things that you did to help you understand the U.S. system better?
Oh, reading helps.
Let's talk about books. What are some of your favorite books to read that you recommend for our listeners?
Ooh, okay. I love Just Mercy.
By?
I forgot his name.
I know his name. It's Brian Stevenson.
Okay.
He's a Harvard-educated lawyer.
Okay. That was a good book.
What was it about?
Ooh, Root.
It's a deep.
It's about.
Topic,
I think no. It's about the criminal justice system.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you.
There's actually a movie about it.
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan. That's the only reason why you should go watch it. If you're listening to
this, as good acting. Just go see him.
If you're listening to this, Michael B. Jordan, we are your fans. Okay, moving
from
on.
Ethiopian, Addis Ababa.
He's probably not gonna listen.
You never know. You never know.
Shooting your shot. All right. Next book.
Oh, the New Jim Crow Era. I think that's good, but I think that's two books that I really recommend people should read. I like that. Mm-hmm.
I also read the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Ooh, that's a good book.
Yeah, it was during actually my summer of junior year. And my senior year, I decided to also take classes on the African American and immigrant experience, and it was one of the things we also studied. So his autobiography, it was eye-opening. Like, I recommend that book so much.
Yeah, I've never read it, but I think I heard it's a good read.
It's a very good read because it gives you the context and like you see it through the lens of a visionary leader, even though at the time he was considered radical. But then you also see that, people change the ways in which they achieve their goals, because first he was, for violence, and then but then later on he understood non-violence was the way.
Will work.
So then you also see the weaknesses of human beings and even leaders such as, Malcolm X. Yeah. And it was such a good book.
Ooh, before I forget, watch the 13th Amendment. By that's 13th? The best. Yeah. 13th. That's the best.
I agree.
It's amazing.
I think it's on Netflix, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It was actually part of my criminal justice class.
Wow.
We watched it together. Mm-hmm. And what surprised me the most is the way. So we saw that movie and we read the book, Just Mercy, for the class. Then our professor, he kind of had like small groups, and we were just having a discussion on it. And the very surprising thing for me is after you see that, I thought people would be more compassionate
towards the plight of African Americans.
Not just African Americans in general, but people who are part of the prison system.
I see.
Just the whole criminal justice system is just it's beyond ridiculous. And it was the complete opposite reaction. And I was just like, you look what's happening. Like, people are just going to prison for small petty things.
Yeah.
And forget like the racism. Just see like the sentencing, everything is just horrible. And I could not believe after you see that, and this is the product. This is how you think, and it kind of made me question if I don't know how to put it, but
so let me maybe ask you. So, what were some of the comments that caught you off guard?
well, actually, okay. So one comment that was most surprising was on. Our professor asked us like, what intrigues you the most, and how do you feel about the whole criminal justice system, including the prison system? And one person is and like, do they deserve to get their rights? Yeah, the most debatable part is the right to vote. And one person was like, nope, they should not get the right to vote. And they're in there because they did something, and people should be punished for if they commit a crime. And the two, like, imagine 13th and Just Mercy do not talk about how people should be punished. It was more of like how the whole American criminal justice system is destroying people's lives.
Yeah, and even like in Just Mercy, like Brian talks about, like, do we even have the right
exactly
to punish people and like take away their dignity as human beings?
Exactly.
So that was the core message of the book, I feel like.
Definitely. And even there was like one part he was talking about a person who did commit a crime, but at the same time, like, he was saying, does he deserve to die for that?
Yeah.
So I was shocked that everything just flew past him. And I don't know.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was the cultural background of the person who had this opinion?
Yeah, of course. He was white, Caucasian.
Okay.
Yeah, typical like white person that we see.
But then at the same time, okay, let me ask a follow-up questions. So as like the U.S. tokenizes us, do you think we tokenize them?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah.
There is a reason why I'm asking this question, because obviously we're talking about our own experiences and then we're seeing it from our own lens. But then at the same time, are we doing the same things that we feel is being done onto us?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Why is that?
Of course, we do have like different experiences, but I don't think we treat them unfairly. I don't think we tokenize them as no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, because I live here now, so no.
But then while you were there?
No.
Okay.
Because I think I kept most of the time, because I moved to Seattle for work, and I think I kept most of the time with Ethiopians.
Okay.
So, not really. I thought you were just, I don't know. It's their country, so no.
So going back to our topic of this episode, which is dealing with representation, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, the struggles that we face as Ethiopians, because as Ethiopians, I'm going to generalize. I know we don't all share the same experiences growing up in Ethiopia, but we are raised to be proud of our culture. We are raised to speak up, but then when we go to the U.S., we deal with being considered black. But then a lot of times I feel like I struggle, not me personally, but then like my parents and then my parents' generation, they struggle to understand the experiences of African Americans. And so when things happen that affect me, like, police brutality against, black people, then I talk about it, that infuriates me. But then they're like, that's not your place, that's not your fight to fight. So how do you find that balance of having your Ethiopian heritage, but then when you're living there, you deal with all of these things that are going on? So how do you find that balance between those two?
Ooh, that's a hard question to ask. I don't think there's any right answer for that one.
What was your experience like, specifically for you?
Well, like I said, I was there when Trump was elected.
Okay.
But even then, the way I saw the world was different. Even with the liberal white American and African Americans, it was different. For me, like for instance, if you talk about immigration. As an Ethiopian, I do believe there has to be a limit. You can't let everybody in, which will this definitely offends a liberal. I don't believe poor people should just migrate. You can't. There has to be a system and a balance. But when it comes to specifically being black,
but then also Ethiopian at the same time.
Yeah, also Ethiopian at the same time is the first thing that I had to do for me is accept that when a white person looks at me, that I'm black. Not an Ethiopian. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's going to ask me for my passport.
And some people don't even know where Ethiopia is. I've had people ask me, like, is it next to Alaska or...
Oh, yeah. Not Alaska, but they didn't know, like, if we were part of Africa, because they thought Africa was a country as well, so...
That's also an issue.
That's an issue, but, we will deal with that some other time. So, getting back to my point, I think the first thing that you have to do is you have to accept that you're black. And I guess when I don't know. I think you can use your Ethiopianism, I guess, when you're... I can't really find a good answer for this one. So it's okay. I really have to think about it. But all I can say, I think it's just a balance of everything. But when you're Ethiopian... Yeah, it's hard. I think especially Ethiopian culture, like you just said, because people don't, especially the way we're raised, is that you're free.
Never colonized.
Never been colonized. So, you don't share the experience. And when you try to be an ally there, sometimes it comes back to bite you because they're like, hey, you've never really experienced that. Or like you've never experienced the discrimination and everything, so you don't really understand. But I think what you have to do is listen, be part of the movement, because it's going to affect you as well, whether you like it or not. If you live there, especially if you live there. Here, maybe not so much, but there, I think you just have to listen. Just shut up and listen. I think even if you're Ethiopian, we talk too much. I think seriously,
we talk too much.
So I think when it comes to this, I mean, we're proud, but sometimes you just have to just shut up. Not everybody have to know.
Yeah.
That, yeah.
I think you brought up a very important point of, like, listening to other people. Because that's where, like, you learn so much. Because when you're always talking, because you're always thinking about yourself, this is my experience, this is my story. But then you're missing out on the opportunity to learn something interesting and to, like, broaden even your imagination and the way of thinking and, like, changing your point of view by just the simple act of listening to someone.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a very, very helpful advice to a lot of international students, actually, because when you first go there are a lot of new things that you face, and a lot of times, at first, like, if you just stop and listen, maybe it might give you time to think about your answers as well.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're, like, I think when you're an international student, sometimes you're kind of defensive, because... you're going to be, like, bombarded with a lot of questions. So at one point you're going to be, I don't know, you think it's going to be, like, a challenge to some of your belief system or your identity. Like, when people are trying to make you feel low. So you kind of will become a little bit loud. So try your best not to become, I think it's annoying. So don't become annoying. I think maybe I've done it as well.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's a very difficult path to go through.
Yeah, but there is no right or wrong answer, I think. It's just your own path.
Yeah. But then another thing I also want to highlight was in school, I felt like, because we're talking about representation, even if we got these questions that were demeaning or that were ignorant, the U.S. also provided a space where we could celebrate our own Ethiopian culture. Because at school, like, we had the space to cook Ethiopian food. We had the space to showcase our traditional dances. And so I feel like those are, like, some of the positive things that the space provides for us to have a little piece of home with us.
Yeah, true. I never get to experience it because, again, I was in the L.L.M class, but the only thing that we did was present our culture and our history and everything back and whatever you want to, but it wasn't for the whole school, for the international students.
I see.
So some of the questions were, overall it was good. It was good, but I think people should be ready to get, like, after talking about the grand things about your country, people might comment something really dumb. And the dumbest question that actually came, two people, but one person is, I'm actually going to call him out right now. He asked me, seriously, no, because he asked me, maybe Ethiopia didn't have anything, that's why she's not colonized. And guess who came that for? And guess who said that?
Who said that?
The only African person inside the room.
No
and I was
way.
like, I was very confused, but I didn't want to say anything and just, like, go into battle. So I'm like,
God.
we have gold. So that was the answer.
We have more than gold.
I know, no, like, it's just, I was confused. And you kind of don't want to say, like, I could have, like, had a really, really good response. Yeah. But not in front of all that people, like, I don't.
And sometimes, like, you have to choose your battles.
Exactly.
Right?
This made him look small, not me.
So okay, I'm just trying to understand what you just said. So his reasoning was because there was nothing in Ethiopia, the colonizers didn't...
They didn't even bother to come. But they came twice, just FYI.
Did you, like, maybe recommend a book for him to read?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it was one of those battles that you thought, it's not worth it.
But sometimes I think one thing people should really be, like, should expect is that it's not, you would assume it would be someone from the from, like, America, from the US who's going to be asking questions. But no, for me it was the opposite. The majority was from the international students. But overall I think it was the most interesting part of my life. Right? Interesting. Right? I think it changed me a lot.
Same.
Yeah.
I feel like if I did it,
people should do it.
You do?
Yeah.
Like, even with all the things that we talked about.
Travel. Leave your country for a while.
I think it changes your perspective for sure.
Definitely.
And for me, what did it was, like, meeting someone from a country that is different from me. Like, but then we shared some common values.
We do.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that was what surprised me so much, because we were raised, like, you know, I just didn't think that you could share so much in common with someone you've never met and they're from a completely different background. But then it's like you form a bond in college, and then you share, like, you know, the same struggles, and then that's where, like, you know, really beautiful friendships are formed.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I was surprised because I think, like I said, there wasn't anyone, but, you know, I had some of my good friends now from L.L.M, from my class, was from France, Chile, and Colombia. Wow. Surprisingly, yeah. And it worked out fine. Yeah, and it was surprising because we had, like, very common values, even in our culture, especially Colombia and Chile. Some of the culture, like, we did understand each other. Yeah, like the conservativeness in some part of it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so as we're wrapping up this episode, is there anything you want to include or add, or, like, specifically an advice that you have for a prospective international student going abroad, or anybody who's thinking about study abroad?
Okay. First is leave your country. Just for a while, but come back. Okay. But just go out, experience everything.
Stress on the comeback.
Okay, come back. Okay. Come back, yes. And experience everything. Say yes to everything. Not to the best, but the good stuff. Say yes to everything.
Say yes to everything?
Not everything, of course. Like, use your moral compass, of course.
What do you mean?
As in, go challenge yourself. Experience it. Meet different people. Don't be afraid. I think just break out of your shell. Go meet just try your best to experience as much as you can. Yeah. And be open-minded. Be open-minded, be flexible. Then after you get all that experience, just come back to your country and work here. That's what we want.
Yeah, and then even for me, I feel like what I would say is the experiences of international students are multifaceted. They're not the same. It depends, from each person. Like, we're both from Ethiopia, but we had completely different experiences as international students. So it's really hard to generalize it as one experience. But as you said, if you're thinking about it, it's going to be difficult. Like, I'm not going to lie. You're going to face challenges, but at the end of the day, you're going to learn lessons from it.
Yeah.
That's going to help you down the line. Because like, even when we were in school, we like, as international students, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to excel.
Yeah.
Dealing with family expectations and all of that. And so it's a lot of layer that plays into it. But then at the end of the day, you get a good education. You meet a lot of people that you would never have met before. And so I think it would be a good experience for people to challenge themselves. And then, but also, as you said, be open-minded, because you're going to face a lot of things, like the things that you have held to be, true and what you consider normal. Is going to shatter when you
definitely
go.
That's gonna be challenging. And it's gonna help you to be less angry and anxious.
Explain more. What do you mean?
Well, it's like being always rigid, when someone challenges you, you're gonna get a little frustrated. So that's gonna change into being angry, so you're not gonna enjoy any of your experience. So just be open-minded. Even if you it's coming from a bad place, just you don't have to fight on everything. If they don't get it, it's their loss.
Because at the end of the day, you're the one who controls your reaction to things that happen.
It's okay. Sometimes it's okay. And I think that's one of the values I think that we learn, like living in Ethiopia. I think some things you just have to let it go. You can't fight everything.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude our first episode of the Internationalie podcast. Thank you so much, Makeda, for being my very, very first guest. I hope that a lot of people would, learn a lot from our experiences and the stories that we shared. I feel like this would provide a good resource, I would feel like, for, prospective international students. So, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay! All right. Until next time with another guest and another topic about the international student experience. Bye!